Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Rachel and I am knitting. Not right now, but most of the time. And I have been knitting. As you can see, I have another classic ribbed hat on my needles. This is a free pattern by Purl Soho. You can get it on their website or on Ravelry, and I am knitting this up with one skein of fingering weight. I'm holding it double, so it's making a DK weight fabric. It's just knit one, purl one all the way around. But this is the carpet colorway from the Cabin collection, my collaboration with Cesium Yarn. It is probably my favorite colorway of the collection, and it's knitting up really, really beautifully. But as you can see, there is this little notion on here. And you may be familiar with what this is, or you may think, what in the world is that? Well, this is a row counter, and this particular row counter is from Twice Sheared Sheep. You can get similar style row counters a few different places. Basically, the concept behind this is that you use numbered beads and corresponding loops or chains to make a row counter. So I've talked about Twice Sheared Sheep notions on this channel before. I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I'm a brand ambassador and I love using these notions. They make the making process a lot more streamlined for me, and they help me get into the zone a lot easier because I'm not focusing on silly little things like, counting. The notions help do that for me and streamline that process. So if you've been having your eye on Twice Sheared Sheep row counters or other row counters with the similar concept, I wanted to walk you through how I use mine to kind of demystify it for you. And I have said this before, I've been very transparent about this, at least on Instagram. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this on YouTube yet, but when I first saw the Twice Sheared Sheep row counters, I thought, what? Those are going to be so cumbersome, and no, they're not for me. Why would I try those? They're just going to get in my way. Well, I'm happy to report that I was stupid. I was very, very wrong because I use a row counter on essentially every project that I'm working on. Some exceptions are if I have like a sleeve that I'm working on where I have decreases every 4 rows or something, then the numbers of the row counter and the numbers in my brain are competing. So then sometimes I'll forego the row counter and use a different counting method. But for the most part, I am utilizing a row counter on every project. So let me switch perspectives here and I'll walk you through how I use this row counter, and you can decide if this would be a good fit for you before you invest your money in it. So let's switch perspectives and I'll show you. All right, welcome to the bird's eye view of my knitting setup when I'm using a row counter. So before I explain a little bit of how I use this row counter, I'll tell you that the row counters that I used before I knew about Twice Sheared Sheep were these little clover row counters, and basically they work as clicker buttons that's either a soothing sound or an annoying sound, and they have the ones place and the tens place, and you can change that number by clicking, or you can manually move the wheel or the cog on either side to determine what row you're on. And as you go through your rows, and if you get to the next tens place and you click the button, it should trigger it so it changes the tens place as well. Another nice feature of these clover row counters is that you can lock it on the side, so now the wheels are not able to move and you can't click it to change. So that's great if you want to count your rows. These don't come with any string, but they do come with this hole down here. So this is like a crochet chain I made. This is an I-cord I made. So I basically used these row counters as necklaces around my neck, and I would have these on as I worked on my projects. And that was a great solution. But some problems with that were, this was like these were my 2 row counters across all of my projects. So I couldn't pick up a project out of my project bag that maybe I've neglected for a while and instantly know what row I'm on, because these are not attached to that project. They were attached to my neck. So there's flexibility there where I could use these for different projects, but also creates the potential for confusion, because if I just pick this row counter up after a little while of not using it, I don't know what project was on row 50. So that was kind of a pain. The nice thing about the twice sheared sheep row counters, or similarly structured row counters, is they function as a stitch marker that stays on your needles, at least for the knitting version. If you're using these for crochet, I think it would be a little different. I've only used these for knitting so far. But it stays on your needles. So this is attached to my project, and there are pros and cons with that. So for instance, sometimes I've needed a row counter and I haven't had the right size because it's been on a project that's kind of in timeout. But it is really convenient because I can put this down and pick it back up, and I will know what row I'm on. So with any row counter, whether you're using a clickable row counter, or you're making tally marks on a piece of paper, or you're using a row counter like this one from Twice Sheared Sheep, you need to decide what your preference is when keeping track of your rows. Some people prefer to mark a row that they're on when they start that row, meaning they just start the second row, so they mark the second tally. So let's say I'm on row 2 and I'm just starting row 2. Some people decide to click their marker to indicate that they are on that row. My preference is to wait to click until I've completed the row. So I would not click this until I finished row 2. So when I'm on row 3, I would still have the number 2 on my counter, and then once I completed row 3, I would click that. So that's your preference. That's the first thing you need to decide. Are you going to keep track of your row as you get to it or as you complete it? For me, I keep track as I complete it. So with that said, I'm going to just show you quickly how this works. So I'm nearing the end of my 49th row, and I know that because I have my 8 on the needle and I have my melody clip on the 4. So what that means is the last row I completed was 48, and I'm currently on 49. So let me finish this row. All right, so this is functioning as my beginning of round marker as well as my counter. So instead of just sliding my beginning of round marker as normal, I'm going to instead insert my needle into the next chain. So that indicates that I've gone up a number. Slide it off from your left needle to your right needle, and now it's on the number 9. So I know that I'm now working on row 50. So now let me knit through this row, and then I'll show you how it works when you reach a new set of 10.
Okay, so as you enjoy this really fast view of me knitting, just take a second and imagine if we could actually knit that fast. It would be incredible.
All right, so I've completed that row and I'm ready to move on from marking it as the 9th row to the 10th row. So again, I'm just going to slide this so I grab the next loop down, and that is going to tell me that I've reached a new tens place. Now let me just knit a few stitches to get this secure so the marker doesn't slide off. Okay, so now that I'm on a new tens place, I am going to move my melody clip. So your row counter with Twice Sheared Sheep comes with what they call a melody clip. And that just means it is a, well, it looks like a musical note, which I guess that's why. That's clever. I never made that connection before. But it's open. It is not a fixed stitch marker, there is room for it to clip onto fabric, or in this case, your row counter. So I previously had it between the 3 and the 4, and just for my brain, I've decided that when something is in between two numbers, it's the bigger number that I'm meaning. So for instance, it's between the 9 and the 10's place, so here I know it's indicating the 10, or, you know, the 0, but the 10 for our purposes here. So now, since I've reached a new 10's place, my melody clip was between the 3 and the 4, indicating that I was in the 40s. Now I'm in the 50s, so I'm just going to move this up a space. And that's just going to hang on there for my reference. Now, if I were to go put this whip away for many, many days and forget all about it and then rediscover it later, I could simply look at this and know, okay, I just finished a 0 row, and my melody clip is between the 4 and the 5. So with the system I've decided on, I know that I just completed row 50. So now I can continue knitting, and once I get to the end of this row, I will just loop back to the beginning, and I'll put this on the 1's place, and it will kind of change direction. So that's how I use the row counter. If you are the kind of person that doesn't want to mark your row after you've completed and instead prefer to mark it once you're on it, then you can adjust accordingly for when you slip which number. But that's how I do it, and I hope that helps. So there you have it. So like I said before, it's pretty simple and straightforward, but if you're anything like me, when you're presented with something new or something that you're not used to, I don't know, it feels a lot more complicated. So I hope that helped demystify it. Another thing I'll say before I sign off here is that Twice Sheared Sheep has different sizes of these row counters. So the one that you just saw me use is a size small, meaning it's going to fit up to a size 4 US needle. They also have size large, and that fits up to a 10.5 size needle, and a size medium, which fits up to an 8 size needle. So yes, there's all sorts of different sizes of row counters, all sorts of different charms. I have a pink lemonade one. I have a bumblebee. I have a dragonfly, a butterfly, a fox. So they're just cute, fun, and helpful. I keep all of my row counters in this tin, and I am hoping soon that I will not have enough room for all my row counters because I love them and I always use them. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's how I use a row counter. Do what works for you, whether that is using a row counter like this or a row counter like this. Both get the job done. But if you've been wanting to try a row counter that doubles as a stitch marker and stays affixed to your project, like for instance, if you have young kids that see this and just want to go all day long, you're going to lose your row counter, whereas that problem is kind of mitigated with this option. But yeah, anyway, I hope this quick video is helpful for you. And if you do want to get a row counter from Twice Sheared Sheep, or any notion from Twice Sheared Sheep, I'll put my affiliate link in the video description box. I love these notions, and I hope that you do too. All right, that's all I have for you. I'm going to go knit some more of my hat. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my next upload. Last but not least, head over to Instagram and follow me at Rachel is Knitting if you don't already. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.